Let's talk about something that's becoming increasingly important for enterprise companies worldwide: cyber risk management. Traditionally, cyber risk has been managed manually in silos, separate from the business's core operations. The future is about getting real-time risk insights benchmarked against your industry peers through automation. And CyberSaint's CyberStrong platform is leading the charge. CyberStrong is not just another point solution. It's a revolutionary platform. It's a quantified top-down risk approach where your unique cyber risks inform C-suite decision-making to identify your top 5 cyber risks and the controls to mitigate them. Sign up for your free cyber risk analysis by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersaint.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices or reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by Deep Instinct. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is Carl Froggett, CIO of Deep Instinct. Hello,
Thank
Carl.
you.
How are you?
Thank you. Good. Very busy, but enjoying the week.
Yeah. So today, I love the title here. The EDR honeymoon is over.
Yep.
The power of deep learning to combat AI threats. So, yeah, I think we're definitely at an inflection point where we now know the bad guys are organized.
Yep.
They have their own research and development.
It's a business, it's an industry.
They've got their own tech experts.
Yep.
So they have access to the same technologies that we do.
That's right.
And now we have to respond to that.
Yep.
Except they don't have some of the same restrictions that we do in deploying
They don't have the
those
same
technologies.
integrity.
Yeah, puts us at a bit of a disadvantage, it would seem. Right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does if you take a traditional approach.
Right.
And
So what kind of things are you seeing that they are doing?
Yeah. So look, I think if you look at last year at any measure,
Mm-hmm.
we had a record year for ransomware payments.
Yep. Over $1 billion, right?
1.1, I think, was
Yep.
the latest count. We had a record year for the number of data records stolen,
Yeah.
and therefore extortion. If you look at vulnerabilities, we had over 26,000,
Yeah.
which obviously the bad guys are exploiting. And Unit 42 from Palo Alto, an interesting kind of fact is those vulnerabilities have a publicly published exploit around 23 days on average. So the bad guy, the bad actor, has already got a 23-day advantage over us trying to play by the rules and defend.
Yeah.
So, the EDR, kind of the detect and respond approach, let's be honest, last year it didn't work.
Yeah.
Bad actors were in Microsoft for 2 months.
Yeah.
MGM.
Well, they're not actually sure. Their logs didn't go back.
Well, and that's a different story, right? But MGM, I think they were in there for 9 days. So where is this EDR, this detect and respond?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be working. The bad actors have moved their tactics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what are some of these tactics we see them using, particularly with AI?
Yeah. So. As you mentioned, it's an industry. Obviously, nation-state actors have a different agenda,
Right.
but they're using similar tools. The bad actors we generally see with MGM, United Healthcare, they're in it for money, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for the profit, and as you say, there's a whole cottage industry around there. But look at the costs of those breaches, right? MGM was 110 million, I believe. United Healthcare, I mean, obviously they're very publicly getting through a post-mortem with the US government, 1.6 billion
Yeah.
in current loss. And then one from last year, Clorox. I like the Clorox one because they initially said, hey, we got breached and it cost us 27 million.
Mm-hmm.
Then they revised it to 49 million, and then it became 363 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just announced last week they're having a bad quarter because they're still feeling the after effects of that attack and that ransomware. So my whole thing here is, the detect and respond approach has been great for the last few years, but it's clearly not working. It's costing us a lot of money. So we need to be pivoting back to preventing these things from happening in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's it's funny how we went through this down this path where it was all prevention.
Yep.
And we didn't see the attacks come in, so we leaned heavily towards detect and respond, and just weren't able to make it stick. Just in a lot of cases not able to like we're detecting everything.
Right.
But a human never sees that in the sea of data that they're drowning in.
Exactly.
Right.
There's a lot of noise.
So back to what can we do to prevent it from happening, or at least isolate it when it happens, right?
So the bad guys are using all the latest tools, generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
I was here 2 years ago, I want to say, when ChatGPT made a big splash. Following ChatGPT, that 12 months, phishing went up by 1,265%.
Yeah.
The bad actors are, this is a great tool. How can we use it in the attack chain? And obviously, something like ChatGPT was weaponized on the dark web. And now you have, these GPTs that will write extremely sophisticated phishing emails that will bypass not only the technology that we have built into email, but obviously when the user looks at it,
it looks legitimate.
Yeah. We're no longer dealing with the prince in Nigeria trying to kind of send you $10 million, right?
Right.
Like these are very targeted, sophisticated, attacks that even me, having done this for 30 years, I see a few and I have to look at it really hard and kind of understand. So the bad guys have just weaponized the generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
The University of Indiana published a paper in January. They looked at over 13,000 LLMs on the dark web.
Oh, okay.
And they analyzed deeply around 212 of them. 93% of them could write sophisticated malware that would bypass EDRs.
Wow. Okay.
So the bad guy now, just like we had frameworks back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
they have these tools that don't need the expertise. And the thing with the generative AI is it's creating new ones all the time. So historically, we've always had patterns with signatures. If you see something bad, you write a signature, right? EDR, right? You see something bad happens, and then you update your machine learning models.
Yeah.
But like I say, there's a lot of noise, and by any metric that you look at last year, as an industry, we're failing.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are just weaponizing that generative AI.
So I can't imagine that we're going to stop doing the detect and respond. Like we still need
I agree.
That it's still that's still a challenge to tackle, and I'm sure we'll continue trying to tackle that. I've seen a lot of things that automate tier 1 SOC, things like that. We're seeing a lot of advancements in there and trying to filter out the noise and get to better signal. But at the same time, what more can we do to prevent these attacks or harden against these attacks at the same time?
This is where I joined Deep Instinct because of the deep learning technology. So, AI is bounded around at this conference quite a lot. If you look at most of what I'm seeing here, it's augmenting something bad happened, and now we're going to use an AI to detect and respond, and maybe we can do it quicker. So we're all about prevention first. Why let the bad thing happen?
Right.
IDC last year actually published pretty damning quote around that as an industry we had pivoted too much. We had given up. We had pivoted, like we can't prevent, we're just going to detect and respond.
Yeah.
And they kind of said if we had to spend actually a bit more effort in the prevention, we maybe wouldn't be in a bad state. That's what we do at Deep Instinct. We're the only company that's using deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, a more advanced subset. And deep learning has some unique characteristics, and one of them is that it is able to not only prevent known malware, but autonomously make decisions on new and unknown malware that we've never seen before and prevent it from running and executing.
Okay.
I agree with you. You still need, nothing's bulletproof. You still need the telemetry and the noise, but you should be adopting a preventative posture and not relying on your ability to detect and respond, because the examples I just gave, it's not working.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And how is that? So it's a subset of machine learning, and is this something that happens on the back end with you guys, or is it does it learn adapt for each environment that you put it in? How does a deep learning?
No, it's a great question. So we probably don't have time to get into it, but it's autonomous. So think of a self-driving vehicle. That doesn't make a call to the cloud to say, should I stop at this stop sign?
It's got sensors on it.
We got the sensors, but the brain that's making the decision is very fast, but it's autonomous.
Yeah.
There's a little joke around self-driving cars around, they don't actually know why that deep learning neural network stops at a stop sign.
Yeah.
They're just glad that it does, but they can't explain why.
Right.
And that's always been a challenge. So we have the same deep learning. And like I say, we have many examples where our brain that we give to our customers will prevent malware months after the brain has been trained, because deep learning takes all the available data when we train it on malware. And so because it's taking 100% of the available data, it's able to predictively prevent new and unknown attacks. And that's what we're starting to see the bad guys with generative AI create. What that means for our customers is we're very fast because we have no latency, no lag. We're very privacy sensitive because we're making autonomous decisions. Our customers' data remains in the customer. We never train on customer data. So deep learning,
it's a big concern these days.
And I deployed Deep Instinct in my previous company, and things like GDPR and whatever, like tick box, because none of the data ever left the company. So and because it's autonomous, we can do things that literally nobody else can. Our biggest customers operate in air-gapped environments. They're not connected to the internet, but our brain is autonomous, like the self-driving car. So we don't need to constantly update it. We maybe update our brain once a year.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So it's a total paradigm shift for detect and respond. So we're much more accurate, and we prevent the threat from executing in the first place.
Gotcha. And I understand you debuted something called Diana.
That's right.
At RSA conference this year. So Diana stands for Deep Instinct's Artificial Neural Network Assistant.
I'm glad you read that, because that would have been a test.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
So one of the things that we heard from our customers, and I was here last year, was everything I've just explained. So if historically we had patterns, signatures, something bad, we'd write a signature. EDR, detect, analyze, update the machine learning model. Yeah. So there was always a pattern and a history. So our deep learning neural network and what we give to our customers prevents previously unknown malware and ransomware and threats. So the question was, why is that malicious, right? A SOC analyst takes hours to put it in a sandbox and understand why our brain made the decision that it did.
Yeah.
Diana is taking our deep learning, and combining it. So in seconds, it will give you a nice plain English report of the artifacts in that threat as to why it made a decision that it was a threat. Right? Even though we have never seen it before. And nobody else here can do this with unknown malware.
So maybe it tells you what it would have done if it was able to execute?
Yeah, so it tells you, so if you think of an analysis, and a SOC analyst would do this in a sandbox or other tools, and it would take them hours, Diana does it in seconds and gives you the report. So for example, it would say, this file, this office file, this whatever, makes a call to these URLs which are associated with a Tor network, right? It has evasion techniques that are seen in EDR players, right? So obviously it really breaks down takes you to the code and presents it in a nice report that even my dad could understand if he was reading it, right? Very, very simple. So it's really going to revolutionize the ability of an expensive SOC level 3 threat researcher to get that in seconds, not in hours, and to be able to explain very quickly the unknown unknowns, because the bad actors are leveraging generative AI to create exploits and to create malware. So everything is shifting. Everything will be unknown unknowns, not historic patterns that in my 30 years of doing cyber, we've always kind of had patterns and frameworks of how the bad actors work. That's disappearing. And Diana really helps that explainability as to why something was a threat, even though you have absolutely no knowledge of it prior.
Right. Yeah, it's great. I love seeing this trend where more and more, we've got technologies doing what analysts used to have to do painstakingly, manually in the past. Yeah, and that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, and again, you see a lot of things here with AI that are today kind of, and I'll kind of say trying to speed up the detect side, because then you can respond, right? But there's nothing here that I have seen that is taking the approach of, you know what, I never got paid in my previous role for telling the CISO that I let something happen, but I managed to respond to it and save the day. No, the CISO paid me to prevent things from happening. Because obviously, as we see, disruption happens, and it costs us, some of the examples I gave, a lot of money, not only from a revenue perspective, but a loss of productivity, the reputational impact, and then, as I kind of mentioned, the ongoing quarter by quarter reputational loss. So it continues to impact, and ultimately we're very accurate at what we do as well. And again, that's just deep learning. We don't want to disrupt businesses, right? But we do want to be able to say the combination of our deep learning, which is available on endpoints, but we do storage, we do cloud, we can embed into applications, we have an API. So it's very flexible in a defense in depth. It can literally go anywhere. But then combined with Diana, now we can explain the things that would take hours to explain is now done in seconds.
Excellent. Well, Carl, thank you so much for joining me on Security Weekly today. And to learn more about Deep Instinct, you can visit securityweekly.com/Deep Instinct RSAC. And also check out securityweekly.com/RSAC for this content and more. And we'll be back in a few minutes with another interview. Welcome to RSA Conference 2024. We're here recording live from Broadcast Alley in Moscone West. This interview is sponsored by SquareX. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, and joining me is Vivek Ramachandran, founder and CEO of SquareX. Hello, Vivek. How are you?
Thank you so much for inviting me on the show, Adrian.
Yeah.
Super excited. We are doing a booth, meeting a lot of, very interesting people. So yeah, I'm feeling awesome.
Yeah. Me too. It's always fun to so much energy, come in and see everything that everybody's doing, especially when they're new things.
Yeah.
Which what you're doing is fairly new to me, so I'm excited to talk about this. So, the tagline we have here is SquareX is disrupting the browser security market. So I think we should start there and define what you mean when you say browser security market, because there could be some confusion.
Absolutely. So I think, browser security, as probably the universe, if you kind of look at it, there are multiple components to it. So one is your enterprise browsers, and this is something Gartner ended up coining. And really, these are dedicated browsers that you can deploy on your employee laptops and consultant laptops. And primarily, these are geared towards managing access control. So that now only through these browsers, you can access your internal websites, your SaaS websites, and all of that. Now, the other part, of course, is the wild, wild west, right? All of the web attacks that target employees when they're online. So, attacks like spear phishing, malicious document download, session hijacking, malicious extensions and whatnot. And that is also part of browser security. And that is really what SquareX is actually working on and trying to disrupt.
It's amazing. You mentioned malicious extensions. There's almost nothing on the market that looks at malicious Chrome extensions at all.
Absolutely. And this is getting compounded because of the fact that, everybody's writing their own little AI copilot.
Right.
And, now Grammarly and so many little extensions are coming, which are actually offering you free services, all powered by ChatGPT.
Right.
The unfortunate part is that many of these extensions are malicious, as you rightly said, and are trying to steal credentials and whatnot, from the user's browser.
Yeah. So protecting against threats that are focused on the browser. So let's back up a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your background in cybersecurity before founding SquareX.
So I've been in cybersecurity for the past 20 years, 10 years as an entrepreneur. Started off, working for companies like Cisco Systems, implementing layer 2 security. Quickly figured that I enjoyed more breaking security than making it. Got my lucky break working for a wireless security company called Airtight Networks,
right,
where I discovered a lot of first-in-the-world attacks like Cafe Latte and all of that. Spoke at DEF CON and Black Hat multiple times. Then 2010, 2011, a decade back, was when I started my very first company, created a wireless monitoring product, which I ended up selling. Then I created Pen Tester Academy, which had students from 150
I've heard of it,
countries. Yep. And, I exited Pen Tester Academy in 2021 and finally decided to once again, go back into the game. And that's when I started SquareX in 2023.
So you've been working your way up the OSI model. Level 8 next, you're gonna build a management solution.
Pretty much.
So yeah, web-borne threats are not a new thing, right?
Absolutely.
So the way you're doing it is somewhat new. But the fact that these threats are out there are products designed to stop some of these threats. Particularly in the SASE market.
Right.
So how do you differentiate from those? What are the issues with those that you can solve by being right there in the browser?
Absolutely. Great question. So if you look at SASE, SSE, secure web gateways, this technology came in almost like 10 to 12 years back. Those were cloud
and particularly
proxies.
it's SWG is the component we're talking about, right? SWG,
Exactly.
Secure Web Gateway.
Exactly. And, SSL intercepting proxies have been there for a while. But if you think about it, what they're trying to do is look at network traffic, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript,
right,
and infer application layer attacks which are happening in your browser. So unfortunately, SWGs do not have application context.
right.
They have no clue about user interactivity. They have no notion of the traffic they are seeing and being able to correlate that with, browser tabs and windows and how the user is interacting. I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say the SWG sees a file download happen. It absolutely doesn't know if this was because a user clicked on a link or whether one of the inactive tabs is actually dropping a file as a drive-by download, right? Clipboard data. Site ends up reading your clipboard that goes in. SWG doesn't know if this is a form submission, is this a session data, is this actually your clipboard getting read? So without application context, unfortunately, there isn't much you can do. Now, the tricky part is, imagine if you had to share all of that live DOM changes, application context, and sync it with the cloud for every single browser tab that you have,
right,
which is an impossible task to do. So that is really where what we decided to do is, hey, where is it that you have the most amount of rich data when it comes to detecting client-side attacks which are happening against your users? That's actually in the browser. So by having a security product run in the browser, we can pick up all of those DOM changes, browser events, user interactivity, and actually correlate and run machine learning models right there to detect attacks. And that is really what we are doing.
Yeah. And it's a good point because there's so much functionality that's moved client side. I've seen SPAs and like you can even run the Linux operating system within a browser tab.
Yes.
So there's so much going on that you wouldn't see if you're only looking at the network.
100%. And, the best technology example I can give you is WebAssembly.
Yeah.
So WebAssembly is absolutely revolutionizing what you can do in the browser because you can take a lot of your older native libraries and pretty much compile it
Port
and run
them
it in
over.
the browser. Exactly. So a lot of, startups which are probably doing image processing, video processing are starting to offload much of this in the browser itself. So the browser is starting to become a much more capable, larger platform where you can already build applications.
Right.
So what we are piggybacking in that tailwind is really the ability to build a full-blown security product running entirely in the browser.
Wow. Yeah. So maybe let's discuss some specifics, like what kinds of attacks, are the kind of SWGs missing, failing, where you could actually detect some of those attacks. Examples always help to understand.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So the simplest attack I can tell you is, let's say, UI redressing attacks like clickjacking.
Mm-hmm.
So a clickjacking attack entirely happens on the UI side by overlaying different frames.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a SWG is only looking at HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the SWG doesn't understand how all of that is taken by the browsing rendering engine,
Right.
and how all of that is being laid out. So without that context, any form of UI redressing attack is something a SWG will entirely miss.
Yeah.
Now, here's the more interesting part. SWGs today basically, pride themselves of detecting malware in the cloud itself, so that, hey, it doesn't even drop on your endpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But what attackers have started to do is, last mile reassembly attacks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And a very simple example is taking the same malware file, breaking it up, and making it part of HTML, CSS.
Mm-hmm.
So SWGs don't even see that there is actually a file download.
Right.
And on the client side, using JavaScript to reassemble all of that and drop down. And you could rinse and repeat this for even malicious websites and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, lastly, what is compounding this is technologies like WebAssembly, where you can package entire payloads into WASM modules, which is really pretty much compiled code, which SWGs can't analyze, because this isn't plain JavaScript that you can just take and, put into an attack graph.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So for the buyer for this product, is this what does the output from the user's browsers look like? Like, what is the, if I'm going to buy and integrate this into my, enterprise of 50,000 users or something like that, what is that experience like?
Yeah. So great question. So once you deploy our browser extension, which is compatible pretty much with every browser out there,
Yeah.
what we do is, as the user is, surfing the internet, looking at different things, we look at the different browser events and we start to monitor all of that. So now let's say, I'll give you a simple example. Maybe your sales team is getting attacked on LinkedIn, where a bad actor is actually sending a direct message to people, attaching a malicious file saying, you know what, I want to buy something from your organization, and here is details of the purchase order.
Yeah.
So now what's going to happen is, your sales team probably downloads it. Sometimes there may be an intermediate link they have to click through. When that download happens, God hope your endpoint security solution picks it up.
Right. Yeah.
But if it does, all you can see at that point is a malicious file was downloaded via Chrome. Now, for most enterprise IT teams, this is a mess, because now you call up the sales guy and he says, hey, what did you do?
Yeah.
And he either doesn't remember or won't admit. So this is a case where what we can do is entire attack path attribution. So within SquareX, you can immediately see that on LinkedIn, a certain bad actor ended up sending a message, which led to a malicious file download. And because we integrate with a lot of solutions,
Right.
this allows you to enrich that data and be able to correlate attack graphs within the browser.
Right.
Finally, what happens on the endpoint.
Yeah.
So by giving full visibility, we allow organizations to detect and block attacks.
Yeah.
Now, here's the best part. Typically, malicious attackers, would have created one profile and started to attack multiple people. So we automatically pick up these IOCs, let's say the
Right.
malicious document hash, the intermediate websites.
Yeah, because as an analyst, immediately I want to check the email system. I want to see if other people
Exactly.
got it. I want to see if Endpoint, my EDR, Next Gen AV picked it up.
Exactly. So we cross-correlate, and we can immediately tell you that 5 sales folks in different parts of the world in your organization were simultaneously attacked.
Wow. Wow. Very nice. And this works with all the major browsers, I presume?
Yes. So, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Brave, Safari. So it integrates with pretty much everybody.
All right. And future plans for this, it sounds like you already have a lot of integrations there, and being in the browser, I like the fact that you can block as well. Being in that position, whereas a lot of security solutions over the years, I think analysts weren't comfortable with automated remediation, automated
Correct.
blocking. But after years of ransomware,
Right.
that's one of the main things I'm hearing at this conference is people are finally ready A little bit of disruption, even if it's a CEO, is worth way more than having to go through a ransomware's worth of disruption.
Absolutely. And you bring up a very good point, right? If today you asked a CISO, tell me who are your most vulnerable users, tell me who are your most targeted users.
Execs.
When it comes to when they're online, at that point in time, they know it's execs, but sometimes, it's rank and file would actually be the person on the HR team sifting through resumes.
Right.
And she pretty much has to open documents from unknown people.
Yeah.
So
that's
I
the
think,
job. Yeah.
Exactly. And
clicking links is the job.
so attack attribution and trying to give you an early warning system when people are getting attacked is really what we're trying to solve with browser visibility.
Yeah. It's very interesting stuff. How can people get started? Do you have like a freemium tier? How are you, what's the go-to-market with the product?
So, we've kind of gone ahead and launched it in a very big way at RSA. We have a booth 336 at this time.
Okay.
And if you're still around at RSA, come visit us. But you can go absolute obligation
336, that's in the middle, right?
It's 336, Moscow and South.
Yeah, close to the F1 car?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's in one booth where they have that marked, I guess. Yeah. So, they could
That's a
come
good
down.
landmark to...
I think I've seen a lot of people trying to kind of drive that simulator.
Yeah.
So, we are down there, or alternately, you can go to the website. You can sign up for an obligation-free pilot.
Okay, nice.
The best way that we've seen, which works for, our existing pilot and our customers is we just say, just deploy this for 1 week and automatically you will end up uncovering a bunch of attacks which are kind of happening.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, Vivek, so much for joining me on Security Weekly today. I think you joined me for the last one of the day, too.
So, know what? Great. Thank you so much. And it was a great conversation.
If you want to learn more about SquareX, you can visit securityweekly.com/SquareXRSAC. And when we kick off tomorrow, you can go to securityweekly.com/RSAC for all our content. And I think, if I'm not wrong, that's all for today, right? Yep. That's all for today. We'll see you first thing tomorrow.